Welcome to C21 Drive Time. Our team of realtors will be sharing industry news and insights, the occasional interview with interesting people, and some of the most unreal real estate stories you have ever heard. And here's our hosts.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Drive Time. Today's a little different here with the podcast. I have a remote guest, our first remote guest. So if this doesn't work, blame me. I'm here today with Patrick Galesloot. Patrick's the broker owner of C21 Advantage in Red Deer, and former colleague and office mate of mine. So how are you, Patrick?
I'm great, Ryan. Thanks for having me. I didn't realize there was this much pressure being the very first remote podcast.
Yeah, I just sprung that on you at the last second there. So no pressure at all. Thanks
a lot.
So tell us a bit about yourself, Patrick. I mean, I obviously know you and kind of know a little bit about you, but tell everybody who's listening, I guess, who you are, what you do, years in the business, that sort of thing.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So Patrick Galesloot, I'm the broker owner for C21 Advantage here in Red Deer, Alberta. I got licensed in 2002. So I was coming on 20-year anniversary here this year. I got in the business because my parents were in real estate. They were broker owners for C21 Advantage here before me, and I was ready for a change. I didn't know what kind of career path I was looking for or wanted to do. I knew I needed to do something different. I was in the restaurant industry before that, and they said, you should try real estate. You should get into real estate, right? And I'm like, okay, sure, why not? So I didn't really think too much about the business per se, right? We're just doing my own thing, and that's what my parents did. And so I'm glad that they invited me. It's been really good for me and my family. And real estate's a great business for family, for lifestyle. Sure, like any business, it's got its ups and downs and good days and bad days and all the rest of it. But it's been very rewarding. I had the pleasure of working with you when you came into the business a couple of years after me.
Yeah, you are a salesman. If you're saying it was a pleasure to work with me,
you're man.
Pretty hard, buddy.
Oh my gosh. And we it was funny. Like we ended up, because we're both because I think you started about 2 years after me. Hey, 2004.
Not even. I think I was when Gavin was. I think it was 13. Is that right? 12, 13. It was right after you. I remember that.
Yeah.
We shared an office for a while.
We shared an office, and one thing. It was fun. It was entertaining. It was entertaining. The different challenges that we all face at different times, and that kind of thing. So for more about like me, I'm married, got 3 kids. They're in their 20s. My youngest, Parker, he got licensed in real estate last year. He's still finishing up his university degree, so he's just kind of helping me out part-time when he can fit it in. Which I tried to discourage him from. Like, dude, this is not like a part-time gig. Like, you can't. I'm not sure how you're going to do this as a summer job. But he's determined, and he's got a great outgoing personality. So it's been a good fit. I really enjoyed working with him in different aspects when I can. I work with my wife as well. We share this office space together, which surprises the heck out of just about everybody. Like, how can you work with your wife, especially in the same room? Like.
It just happens, right? Just works out.
Yeah, it just worked out. So we've been married for 30 years, and so it's nothing phases us anymore, I think, for the most part. So I know some of the guys you worked with there, Castle and Bell, worked with Mr. Weinbender, Keith there on area. So it's great to see fellow colleagues in the business, and some friends that we've got to know each other over the years, and do different stuff together. It's great. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, of course. So give us a little snapshot, Pat. I mean, we kind of talk on here about what's happening, obviously, in the Lloydminster market, but what's happening in the rest of the province. I mean, you can give a good insight, obviously, to Red Deer, Innisfail, Blackfalds, that kind of surrounding area there. What are you guys seeing with the market?
We're seeing a change again. So Red Deer has always been a market that's slow to react in comparison to Calgary and Edmonton, right? Calgary, obviously Calgary's spiky. Like, they kind of go off the charts a little bit quicker, and they plummet maybe a little bit faster than we do. And we kind of coast in between and kind of watch and see what happens before things kind of trickle up or down the highway, so to speak. So our marketplace started to pick up a little bit in February. Got busier in March, and then our hottest month was definitely April. And then May kind of followed suit. You kind of had this feeling things were changing because inventory levels were starting to rise. We got more listings were coming on in May. And then with the advent of the increase in the interest rates, that there was kind of a push that happened in May, beginning of June, and then things have kind of slowed down a little bit, especially in the last couple of weeks, when those interest rate qualifications certainly have impacted the marketplace, right? And then for those that are not familiar, like what's the big deal? 3% or 4% still a good rate. Well, it changes people's buying power. Like, as you know, Ryan, that instead of qualifying for 500, now that person's in a shopping bracket closer to 400, right? And they still have the stress test. So the stress test was instituted a couple of years ago, which impacted us at that point in time too, because people couldn't qualify for the house that they thought they could because of the stress test. And the stress test is designed to prep home buyers for when interest rates were going up. And at that time, well, they're not going up, they're going up. And you should be happy that you were put under a stress test, because the government doesn't want to take your house. So that's one of those kind of preventative measures. So as much challenging as it's been for us, it's been good in that respect. It's busy. There's pockets of multiple offers still. There's, but it's just changing. You really have to have your finger on the pulse on a regular basis, right? So, yeah,
right. That makes sense.
Yeah,
super. So, what would you say is the main piece of inventory people are looking for? Is it still single family homes? Is it condos? Is there kind of one that's primarily, more dominant than the other, or is it still kind of a mixed bag?
We are single family detached house dominant. That is what people want. Apartment condos are hard to move at any time,
right?
The seniors market type of products, those are a totally different niche, and so they behave differently than anything else. It's funny, you think, like, man, I got this really great affordably priced townhome, this is one's going to be snapped up, it's so cheap, it's in great condition. Well, no, they want a house, right? Right? You're like, come on.
I think it's very similar here. And we find lots of times too with the condos, and you probably see it there too, by the time you qualify for the condo fee and the mortgage, in lots of cases, you're thinking, well, for another $100, you can have a house. And so it kind of really sways people going that way lots of times.
Yeah. And then I think the last 2 years, we definitely had the COVID acreage effect going on.
Yep.
Where there was this demand for acreages. Everybody wanted to get out of town because of all the restrictions and all that jazz, right? And you're like, okay, well, whatever, like, whatever floats your boat. And I'm not buying an acreage. It doesn't suit me, but go ahead. And we had a rush on acreages, couldn't find enough acreages for people. And so that really helped that marketplace and strengthen their pricing and their offerings that they had out there. So that's been really interesting to see. The last year and a bit, and we noticed that a ton of out of province buyers.
Okay.
So lots of folks from Ontario and BC, they're cashing out in their respective provinces, coming here. It's just mind-boggling sometimes when you listen to their stories and you're chatting with them, right? And you're like, okay, well, where are you coming from? Well, I'm coming from BC. And like, okay. And like, yeah, I'm selling my townhouse for $800,000. And you're like, a townhouse for $800,000. Okay. All right. Sounds good for you. And we're going to buy a house for 300 or 350 or something, right? Because you can do that here.
Yep.
And that will be mortgage free. I'm like, how old are you? And they're like, oh, 26, 27. You're like, holy crap, like, to be mortgage free at that age. And it's just tremendous. I just hats off to them that they were able to do that in the dynamic setup. But that, it just blows me away.
Yeah.
And it's fun to see, like, it for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. We've seen some of the same here. Probably not, obviously our population's a lot smaller than here, but we've seen it here as well. And like you said, it's interesting, they come here and they cash out $1 million. We had one cashed out just under $1 million half duplex, turn around and, bought a couple homes cash. And it's like, wow, how nice would that be?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's fantastic. Yeah. It's one of those things, like, everybody strives to be mortgage free. And then so they have these dynamics arise where they can cash out in, Ontario or BC and like, well, yeah, I'm working remotely. I can work anywhere. Or, there's tons of jobs in Alberta.
Yeah.
Right. Especially in the oil field industry, even though oil is bad today, but you still need it. So like, I still got to put $200 worth of gas in my F-150 for cripe's sakes. Like,
yeah, for sure.
So it's not going away.
No, very true. Very true. Well, one of the highlights or lowlights, I guess, depending how you look at it, of our little podcast here, Pat, is I ask everybody, what's the craziest, weirdest, wildest thing you've ever seen in a home? I was kind of mentioning this to you. I'm going to ask you that, right? I kind of prep everybody ahead of time to give you some time to think, because quite honestly, there's a lot of strange, weird, wacky stuff. I don't know what yours is, so this will be a good surprise to me too. But what is the craziest, weirdest, wildest thing you've ever seen or experienced as a realtor?
Well, I listened to a couple of the podcasts for sure after our conversation, and so they're good. I really enjoyed them. I was happy that you talked about the dildo remote control car.
Yes, that was tattooed in my mind. It's just never going away.
I think it's tattooed into everybody's mind at the office, because you had it on office viewings like shortly after you listed it too, like almost the next day or something like that.
Yeah.
And we were like, what are we walking into? Like it was it was just, it was entertaining to say the least. So yeah, you know what? I think there's always I think you do this long enough, there's some element of nudity and sex that's going to come up because you're walking into people's houses. And the other one tends to be almost along the hoarder or cleanliness kind of aspect, right? Where you're like, I don't know which one's more disturbing, or which, the cleanly ones tend to be more disturbing for me, because it's like, oh my God, I got to go home and change my socks. Like,
yeah, fair.
Like I got to change completely and shower after going through that house, right? No. But like on the nudity level, like I've had a couple experience like that stand out for sure. I remember, I was still fairly young in the business, and taking a single mom out with her daughter, right? And the daughter might have been like preteens kind of deal.
Right.
We're looking at some homes, and the property was supposed to be vacant. And, my normal routine is I ring the doorbell and I knock on the door, and then I open the door and you kind of holler, hello. Right. Yep. And it's funny, like just this week, I'm taking a family out, and one of the kids asked me, like, why are you doing that? Like, what do you mean? Well, why are you ringing the doorbell? Don't we have an appointment? And I'm like, well, yeah, sometimes we find people at home that are not expecting us, or they forgot we're coming. Yeah. I'm like, oh, okay, that's great. So we opened the door to this vacant home, and there's some shoes in the entranceway, right? And you're like, well, that's kind of odd. Like the realtor said they were all moved out, and so maybe there's just a few there was no furniture anywhere. It's a couple of pairs of shoes, maybe, like typical kind of move out debris on the floor, that kind of thing. Right. Like, okay, well, whatever. Maybe they're just in transit and whatever. They stepped out for us because they're cleaning, maybe. We kind of holler, hello. No answer. So we started on the main floor, and we're walking around the main floor. Like, we're not quiet. We're chatting. We're having a conversation, about this and about that. When you think about the kitchen, nice kitchen. We're in the kitchen, and we kind of come to that junction in the home where go upstairs or down. Yep. I'm like, well, let's go down. Here's the entrance. So she decides to take us downstairs. So I'm following the buyer. And at this point, the daughter, she's kind of lost interest in going downstairs with us. She's going to explore on her own. So I'm downstairs in the basement with my buyer client and the mom, and we're looking at things, checking out, hot water tank and furnace and, the boring stuff. Yep. And we hear this shriek of, like a preteen girl. Yeah. Ah! And there's the thump of the feet come racing down the stairs. And we were like, oh my God, like what's going on? So we race upstairs, and there's a naked guy. And so she just beelined it out. She just flew out the door.
Oh, so no way.
Like, we're going after her. And the occupants of the home, they never made an appearance like to me or come down or say, hey, whoa, so sorry, or anything like that type of thing. We just like, you know what, we'll just lock up and get the heck out of here. And, like I don't need to see that. Yeah. No. We've got a young person here that's already scarred. We don't need anybody else, right? Type of thing. So that was my first experience, that type of thing. I had a second one. was tenant occupied. So I think you had someone else that was talking about like it doesn't match. I can't remember her name there.
Rita.
With the multi nudity.
Yeah, that was
strange dudes in the house.
That one blew my mind.
But, so I work with my aunt Janice, and she was going away to Mexico or somewhere, right? So she's like, "Hey, can you take my clients out for me?" Yeah, sure, no problem. So we're looking at this house in Lacombe. It was kind of like Lacombe's, about half hour away type of thing, and
yep.
And the house is maybe an estate kind of acreage sort of type of subdivision where it's at. So a nice area. That's lower kind of mid-level pricing for the neighborhood. So it's a little rougher condition because it was rented out. Yeah. And like, okay, tenant occupied, no problem. We got an appointment. We made it like a day or two in advance. Go through the whole motions again. Knock on the door. No answer. Ring the doorbell. No answer. You open the door and there's like shoes everywhere. Like there was a party here and people haven't left kind of shoes on the floor, right? And you're like, wow. Like there's like, but it's dead silent in the house, right? And we're like, hello. No response. And so we were walking in and we walk into the kitchen and the kitchen counters are covered in empty 40s of booze and things like that, right? Like they had a major party here the night before or something. Like, holy shit, like these guys are partying up really good. And the first bedroom we opened, there's a guy starfished on the bed, completely naked, dead to the world. Just absolutely. We're like, yeah, these guys definitely party. Yeah. This is not going well. I'm like, holy smokes. So that's got we just beelined out of there. So yeah, so you got the naked ones, right? Probably the most recent one on the similar vein was last year. And this one is, I find it funny because I took my son along with me, right? He's brand new in the business. And so Parker, he's, was he like 21, right? So he's a young guy and he loves the reality TV shows, right? Live to List Los Angeles or whatever the name of those things are. And you think, oh, it's so glamorous. And he has this vision of that kind of thing, right? Where all you're doing is selling these gorgeous homes.
Yeah, it's easy. You just walk up and show a couple
homes. Sure, absolutely, right. And so I get this call from this guy. Hey, you can help us sell our home. I'm like, sure, no problem. So I go over to the home, and it's an old guy, and he's been there for pretty much since day one, right? So he's been in this house for like 60 years or something like that. And his wife's passed away, during COVID. And you're like, okay, he's all alone. And now his health is getting to a point where he needs to move out. And like, okay, right. I'm sorry to hear that, but no problem. This is what we do. We help people through all stages of their life, right? Like their first home to when they need a bigger home because they have kids, and to when they're downsizing. And unfortunately, sometimes it's this type of dynamic. So the home, for me, it was kind of like, okay, well, here's an old guy that lives by himself. And most old guys that live by themselves, they're not winning any housekeeping award either.
Sure not.
Right. You've probably seen lots of them. Yes, right? Yes. And you're like, yeah, whatever, like typical old guy, right? Like it's not disgusting or anything, but it's just whatever. Yeah. And it's not show home condition, right? But you were sitting at his kitchen table and we're chatting him up there, and said, okay, so do you mind if we go have a walk around and have a look? And we're saying, yeah, sure. And he says, okay, well, like, here's the bedroom. He says, I'm not sure if you want to go in there. I'm like, well, why not? Well, there's some critters in there. And you're, what do you mean there's critters in there? Like what kind of critters do you have in your house? Right. And it's like, well, so some bugs. Oh, like, you have bed bugs? And like he didn't want to tell us what was going on, right? And he says, yeah, we good. There's some bed bugs in the house. in the house. Like, okay, well, no problem. Like, these things happen, no big deal. Walk through the home, and then it was sad because he's living in the basement at this point in time, like, because there was nothing where for the critters to be in, right? So we certainly helped him out. We gave him his marching orders, like, listen, like, I can't put this thing on the market while you have a bed bug infestation. So you got to get an exterminator or whoever does that kind of thing. Do this, do that, do that. Get rid of the carpet, get rid of the, bedding and all this kind of jazz. This is your project. So like, if you need help with that, we can help with that. So the funny part is my son, who was with me, right? So just loves all this glamorous, real estate kind of thing. And I'm like, he was absolutely mortified that this is the kind of house that we're going to do this, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I said it's no big deal. We'll get it cleaned up. Someone will buy it for the right price. Everything sells quicker. It's like, It's not all glamour. There's foreclosures, and some are in all kinds of worse conditions than others. But the funny part to me was like I phoned the office because we took separate vehicles, right?
Right.
So I phoned the office. I work with my wife. I'm like, hey, when Parker comes in and he starts talking to you, just start scratching your head. Right? And they're like, why? I'm like, just I'll explain later. Just you guys, when you just start kind of, pretend you're itchy and just kind of scratch your head every now and then. And sure enough, they did that. And he started to feel like he was like, oh my God. Covered in this stuff. Do I have to go home and burn my clothes? And it was just
that's hilarious.
That was the funny thing, was getting him going. I'm like, you know what?
Oh yeah.
At the end of the day, like, that one, the homeowner cleaned up the property. We got him some help for someone to help him do that. We got the place sold. And he moved on to his next stage, and everything's fine. So, that was there's good and there's bad and there's some sad to it and some humor. And but that, I think those kind of things happen.
Yep.
Right. I think people, they see what appears to be easy and the fun, the glamorous side of things, like, the $1 million listings. Yeah, those are really great to look at. And like, you walk through and you're like, wow, this place looks fantastic. I love this.
Yeah.
And sometimes, you have to be that caregiver, right? I think I don't know if it was Belle that you were chatting with, or Hassel, about you got to be a counselor and you got to be a life coach, and you wear so many hats. And
absolutely.
And I think, like, to me, I was thankful for being able to do what we do, because it's, we're invited into people's homes at all stages of their life, and to give them advice and to help them move on. Right. I always tell people that getting into the business, no one's ever angry to buy a house.
That's right.
Right. They're always excited and happy. Like, which part do you like better, selling and listing, or selling? I like them both. I really do like them both. Like, there's so much energy with working with buyers because of that excitement. Yeah. And sometimes you get different stages, like we just talked about, of the life where, it's a challenge, but it's rewarding because you're helping them move on. Whether it's like, hey, this is the last piece of the divorce process, right? And both parties are sick and tired and want to get rid of the other person. It's a challenge, but when we get to that stage, both of them are happy, aren't they?
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. Super. Well, hey, thanks, Pat. That was awesome. It was a ton of knowledge and some great information. And
thanks. Yeah.
Great stories. So might have you back another time. I'm sure you've got more in the bank if a guy wanted to.
Oh yeah. It's because I'm the broker. Like
you hear it all.
I get pulled into some that are pretty crazy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Been there myself. But thanks again, Pat. Thanks for tuning in, and keep listening, and share the podcast with all the guys in Red Deer, and try and get some of the other guests. I think I've got one of your colleagues and one of my former colleagues for next week as well. So we'll.
Awesome. Fantastic.
And take care.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me on, Ryan. Appreciate it. Take care.
You too. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Thanks to Patrick again for joining us. Be sure to subscribe to the Drive Time podcast, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast fixed, and we'll talk to you soon.